Speaking of Dune, I did not get to see it last week, but finally I managed to get to a theater, got to see Dune Part 2. I did not get the Dune pleasure popcorn bucket, unfortunately. So that is a big loss, and I regret that deeply. However, that's the weirdest popcorn bucket of all time. But the reaction I had when I saw the first film, back when the first film came out, this was in the era of like the Eternals. This was in like the lockdown era was just kind of coming to an end, and you basically had nothing to watch in the theater. There was no good movies coming out, and I was getting kind of tired of what I now describe as these tropes of like telling, not showing, bloated CGI scenes and volume. I start watching Dune in the theater, and immediately I'm like, oh, wow, I remember this feeling. This is the feeling you have when you're watching a film. A film, right? This is a film. And the best directors have a singular vision, and they lead talented people to bring that vision together. And so and you have to have that. You have to have that singular vision. This is why Christopher Nolan is so brilliant. This is why Villeneuve is so brilliant. This is why Takashi Yamazaki directed the best film of the year, Godzilla Minus One, because he had such a brilliant vision, both for the film overall and the special effects specifically. You have got to have that leadership. You've got to have that leadership. And what you get when all these things come together is you get the visual presentation is telling a story. The sets are telling a story. The costumes are telling a story. And the sound design in the first Dune film is absolutely brilliant. I always talk about like one of the best moments in the film is when Paul is being taught the voice by his mother, and she wants him to demonstrate it. And when he speaks, his lips move, but with the surround sound, you could hear behind you kind of a whisper and like a growling voice, and then in front of you, you can hear his voice, and then to the side, you hear this other layer of his voice, and it gave you this feeling like he's speaking in your head. That's brilliant sound design. And so that all those things tell a story together. And the objection I have to something like, let's say, Dial of Destiny, is that Dial of Destiny just leans on fake volume CGI bullshit, just nonsense. Like that scene where Phoebe Waller-Forehead, Helena, is on this motorcycle trying to catch the plane that's got Indy on it. And she's just driving that thing in the driving rain. So stunning, so brave. And she's trying to catch this. And I just remember thinking, like, nothing in this looks real. Literally nothing. She's sitting on a stationary bike surrounded by green screen is what this looks like to me. The difference is when Paul is riding the sandworm in Dune Part 2, it's breathtaking. I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm like, oh my God, is he going to fall off? Of course not. But is he going to fall off? You know what I mean? And so that's the difference. And that's what great filmmaking can do. It combines all those elements. It's interesting. This film has flaws. That would be Part 2. It definitely has flaws. I'm tempted to give it a 10 out of 10 anyway, because when I left the theater, I remember feeling like, wow, I just went on an adventure, like to another world. And I feel like I've come back from that place. And always the best movies give me that feeling. And that's rare. It's not a lot of movies that give me that feeling. It's like pretty much there's maybe one a year, if that. But if I were being as strictly objective as possible, I would say this film's about a 9 out of a 10. And that is because it is an absolutely epic journey. All of the elements are there. The sound design, the effects. This world feels real. Like one of my favorite places was when you go to the Harkonnens planet and they live under this black sun. And so when they're under their own, which I was like, dude, tell me more about the black sun. I'm super interested in that. And they're in this like Coliseum where Fade Rotha, who's one of the Harkonnens, played by Austin Butler. Oh my God, was Fade Rotha awesome, or was Fade Rotha awesome? But I love how there's almost like their world looks black and white under the light of their sun. And I'm like, dude, that is so rad. That is such a cool visual element. And it makes you feel like you're in another place. So all of that was brilliant. I think the only thing I would say, and I honestly don't know how this compares to the book. Spoilers for Dune Part 2. But what I would say is it disappointed me a little that Paul Atreides is not quite the hero that I sort of thought he was. And I'm not saying that as, like, I don't consider that a bad thing. It's more about my own personal experience of the character. I kind of was hoping, I was kind of in for a movie about the classic Epic of Gilgamesh hero's journey. And I wouldn't say it, he's going down a dark path at the end of the film is basically where it's left. I kind of love it, though. I kind of love it. It just wasn't as fulfilling as I kind of expected it to be. That being said, it's a brilliant story, and I definitely, I'm not the wildest fan of Zendaya as an actor. I'm really not, but I like her character a lot in this film. So Chani as a character is great. What's interesting about her is that you're kind of seeing Paul's rise through her eyes. And so she has the kind of dim view of what he's becoming. And I do love how Paul is caught between these two worlds, the world of duty and the world of love. So I love how on the one hand, he's fighting in the trenches with the Fremen. He goes on this adventure with her. And together, they have this passionate adventure romance, fighting the evil Harkonnens together, and it forges this bond between them. But then he's faced with a choice between this great, powerful destiny and his desire and his love for her. And he chooses destiny. He chooses duty, and she's left out in the cold. And I thought that was a fantastic closing image of the film, where she's summoning the sandworm and she's just going out on her own. And it was heartbreaking. It was just a heartbreaking scene because it's like, I just miss that. I just miss adventure tales with romance and battles against tyranny. It's just fantastic. I love that stuff. And so I guess what I'm saying is, while I personally wanted to see Paul choose love, choose the Fremen, choose that side, I don't think it's a bad thing that he chose the other. It's a great story because it's bittersweet, it's tragic. It leaves you wondering, what kind of man is he really? Like, what is he going to become? He's launching this war to take over the Empire. It's fantastic. Absolutely. The movie is brilliant. It has, what's so funny too, is like, a lot of fans have gotten really sick of what I call MCU humor, which is these dumb jokes that, frankly, creatives who don't like nerd culture and don't like nerd things like comic books and Star Trek and so forth, they put these jokes into movies to diffuse what they consider boring nerd shit, right? So my classic example is in the Halo, that garbage Halo show, where Master Chief is about to explain how faster than light travel works, and shaved girl boss says, boring, shut up, you're boring. And I'm like, oh, great. Thanks for self-inserting what you think of the nerd audience right there. But this is what I'm talking about when we're talking about MCU humor. It undermines the tension. It's annoying. It's constant. It is purely to feed the stupid algorithm of what they think they think their stupid audience. That's how they think of their audience. They think they're stupid. And so they have to feed them this humor to keep them invested. And it's interesting to watch a film like Dune where there's humor in it, but it fits within the world and it's grounded and it's serious, because there's this brilliant moment where Paul is he's basically learning to ride a sandworm, and Javier Bardem's character, Stilgar, who believes he's the savior, has taught him how to ride a sandworm, and this is it. This is the moment of truth. He's going to call the sandworm, he's going to ride it. And Stilgar kind of gives him this like, okay, just remember what I taught you, and don't fail. Don't fail, because if you fail, I will be embarrassed. And he's like, don't worry, I'm not going to fail. I'm going to do this. He's like, okay, good. Because if you die, it's really going to embarrass me. I thought that's hilarious. That's a great moment of levity. That's a great line. It doesn't undermine the tension. It actually increases the tension, because he is serious about it. He's like, it's funny, but it's also serious, because he's like, there's a lot riding on this. I've told them all you're the Messiah. Like, don't fuck this up, bro. Please don't. And it's like, now that's how you do humor. That's how you do humor in a science fiction genre piece. You do it in a way that fits within the world, that honors it. Phase 1, 2, and 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe was mostly pretty good at that. Was mostly pretty good at doing humor that fit the world, that did not undermine the tension. But then it eventually started swerving into, oh, we just have to make fun of the fact that these are characters in tights. Now, some of my problems with Dune Part 2, I would say, is some of the edits in the film seemed rushed. There was a scene where Chani shows up to the great meeting of all the Fremen in the South. She shows up in one of the, I don't know what you would call them, but the helicopters, the winged helicopter things. She lands in one, and I remember, wait, where did she get that? Where did that come from? I don't remember her getting in one of those. I don't even remember them having one of those. They rode sandworms, There were a couple of moments like that in the film that just jumped over something. I just had this feeling that they skipped over something and I missed it, whatever it was. So some of that was a bit awkward. If I have one kind of small critique of Dune Part 2 as well, it's that I felt like Fade Rotha was not in it enough. Mostly, this is a pretty well-structured film. If you don't know, if you're new to the channel, I, as a writer myself, I'm a very great fan of the Save the Cat model of how to look at things. So Save the Cat, if you don't know, is a book by Blake Snyder, which basically breaks down in great detail the basic beats of every story and sort of the genres that every story fits into. And there are certain beats that if you want to have a successful film, you just can't miss them. And one of those beats is opening image, then there's setup, the theme stated, that sort of thing. And what I noticed in Dune Part 2 is there is a super essential part of this, which is called the bad guys close in. So right after the midpoint of a film, this is the part where the fortunes of our heroes start to reverse. And the other really important part is what Blake Snyder calls fun and games, or the promise of the premise. So the promise of the premise section of Dune Part 2 is absolutely the part where Chani and Paul are fighting the Harkonnens. They're taking out Harkonnen mining operations, they're taking out Harkonnen ships, and they're just kicking ass and taking names. That is the promise of the premise. That is what we came to see. We came to see our heroes fighting the bad guys, right? And we're getting that in spades, and it's brilliant. Then we hit the midpoint of the movie, which is right about the point where the Harkonnens are failing and they introduce Fade Rotha. I would say that's pretty much the midpoint. Now, the bad guys close in part of the film is when Fade Rotha wipes out the home base of, again, spoilers for Dune Part 2. That is when Fade Rotha wipes out the home base of the Fremen, right? The problem I have is that it's very short and there's not a lot of buildup to it. It sort of happens, and then kind of almost the very next time that we really see a major conflict with Fade Rotha, it's Paul versus Fade Rotha fighting in the Emperor's court, which is great because that's the final part of the film, and that's the denouement. That's where we get to the most important climactic beats. The problem is, bad guys close in really needs to show the heroes on their back foot, like seriously losing. And I just felt that we didn't get enough of that. And so if you come away from this film feeling like Fade Rotha was not in it enough, I think that's what you're picking up on, is the bad guys did not get to close in enough in this film. I think we should have been desperate. I mean, desperate for Paul to defeat him. And what I felt was, I felt like Fade Rotha is a serious threat, and I was very worried about that. But I was not desperate to see Paul defeat him at the point where he defeats him. And I was like, so that disappointed me because Austin Butler's performance of this psychopathic character was just brilliant, just absolutely incredible. And again, this goes back to showing, not telling, right? This is what I mean when I say showing, not telling. The minute that you see Fade Rotha, his mannerisms, his expressions, just what he's doing in a scene, he's immediately intimidating. He is immediately intimidating. You get the sense that this is someone who is a match for Paul Atreides. And that's frightening because we know that Paul Atreides is brilliant. He's cunning. He knows how to fight this amazing guerrilla warfare. But now he's up against someone seriously dangerous and sadistic, right? So I hate to see a character like that go to waste. A character that he doesn't even have to speak for us to get a sense of how malevolent and how dangerous he is. This is what This is what bad writers and woke writers, quite frankly, are not good at. They're not good at writing characters that show you who they are rather than telling you. So that is essentially my thoughts on Dune 2. Brilliant film, breathtaking. I felt like I had just been on an epic adventure. I want to see it 3 more times. Absolutely love it. Couple of things that I thought could have been done a little better, but I would absolutely watch a director's cut. So I would say, if I'm being as fair and just in my critique as possible, I would say 9.5 out of 10. 9 bars out of 10 and an eagle on the epaulets for the Captain's Review. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you loved this clip. Please like and subscribe. And did you know you can join us live every Sunday on the Captain's Cast live show? That's at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, every Sunday. You can join me and the rest of the crew in the live chat as we set sail for more amazing adventures in entertainment, film, video games, etc. And until next time, my dear sailors and starnauts, this is Captain Garrett saying I will see you out there.